A teenager who suffered brain damage after an accident on a bouncy castle has won almost £1 million in damages. The parents of Sam Harris, who was 11 at the time of the incident, won their action against the couple who had hired the inflatable for a children's party. Janet Harris brought the case on behalf of her son, who now needs round-the-clock supervision after receiving the skull fracture in 2005. The judge found that Timothy and Catherine Perry, who hired the bouncy castle for their triplets' birthday party, were to blame for the accident. The damages are to be decided later, but are likely to be in the region of £1 million. In a statement, Mr. and Mrs. Harris said, "Our sole motivation for pursuing this claim was to obtain damages for our son Sam. We're pleased that this provides an opportunity to highlight just how dangerous bouncy castles can be." The court heard that Sam was told by his father not to use the inflatable set up in playing fields near Strood in Kent. Whilst his father attended to another child, the court was told Sam asked Mrs. Perry for a go on the castle and she gave him permission. The accident occurred while Mrs. Perry, who should have been supervising, was strapping a child into an inflatable bungee run. Anyone who hires such an inflatable is told by the hire company never to leave children unsupervised.
Anyone who hires a bouncy castle to anyone does owe them a duty of care. The bouncy castle must be continuously supervised, and it's really important that the parent is told that verbally as well as seeing it in a terms and conditions of hire form.
Well, joining us now is Chapman, a solicitor at Bolt, Bird & Kemp, a firm which specialises in head and brain injury compensation claims. I mean, some people would be struck by the sort of normality of this thing, the idea that there's a bouncy castle for a children's event, and yet there's quite clearly from this judgment an enormous duty of care on anybody who hires one.
Well, I wouldn't agree that it was an enormous duty of care. It is the duty of care that people in this situation would owe to children playing on a bouncy castle. I can't comment on the specifics of the case because it's not familiar to me, but it's obviously a situation which was a joyful occasion which has gone horribly wrong and has led to had tragic consequences for the little boy.
And in a case like this where there is brain damage that occurs and 24-hour care is required, I mean, is £1 million a sort of normal kind of level of damages?
Well, my understanding is that the courts haven't decided how much compensation the little boy should receive. They've just decided that he is entitled to receive compensation. He's proved his case that somebody is liable to pay him. But he was only 11 when the accident happened, and he's now only 15, so he's a very young lad and his brain hasn't fully developed. It won't be until he's in his 20s that we will really know what the damage is going to be. But it looks as though, from what I understand, it's a lifetime care claim, and I understand he needs 24-hour care and probably a loss of earnings claim too. I
mean, when you hear of huge sums being found against ordinary people in society, what actually happens? They have their house taken away from them, or they won't be insured for a thing like this, will they? They
will be insured. If they are an occupier of the house, they will be covered by...
Even though they imported... Well, the thing was, I think, out in the grounds outside. I mean, I know you can't talk about this particular case.
Oh, no, I don't know about that particular case.
But I mean, I'm merely asking, in a sense, what happens to people who suddenly find a bill of £1 million on their doorstep?
They will almost certainly have been insured in this particular case, so the contract will have required them probably to take out an insurance for an event, and it's quite easy to obtain that kind of insurance. Event insurance is a quite common insurance.
And I suppose inevitably people are just going to be scared of doing this sort of thing. I mean, it's a horrific consequence of what you said was a joyous occasion.
I don't think that it's necessary to suggest that children shouldn't have fun. I mean, obviously there's no point in being a child if you can't have fun, but children depend on adults to look after their safety. An 11-year-old boy isn't old enough to make his own judgments about what is and isn't safe for him, and he's entitled to rely on adults to make that decision and look after him. And in this particular case, I think my understanding is that the contract required the play to be supervised at all times. And I also understand that the accident happened in part because one of the children who was on the bouncy castle was much older and bigger than the little boy who was injured.
We're going to have to leave it there, but Joe Chapman, thank you very much indeed for coming in.